welcome to another session of Your Questions Answered. This week I'm joined by Michelle Burges, who is the CEO of the Industrial Health and Research Foundation, of which the Injured Workers Support Network is a part of. Michelle, I'll just get you to introduce you and then I'll put the question to you that they've been asking.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Rowan. I do work for the Workers Health Centre, where we predominantly look after injured workers. That's what we do. So I've been around looking after injured workers for most of my working life. Yeah.
Okay. So the question has been, what does a rehabilitation provider do?
Interesting question, because not a lot of people know the answer to that. Basically, as a rehabilitation provider, what we're here to do is facilitate people that are injured in getting back to work. So we provide what's known generally as rehabilitation services. So that can entail a whole range of things, right from making sure the worker has the proper doctor, the worker gets the proper treatment, has a program to get them fit enough to actually get back to work, but more importantly, so they stay there, so they don't get re-injured. So sometimes that's just about building up the core strength in their body so they're a little bit more resilient to workplace injury and illness. We have a variety of case managers that look after individuals that are injured, and predominantly their role is to work with that injured worker and also the other stakeholders. So the other stakeholders are obviously the boss, the injured worker's doctor, the insurance company, and any other specialist people that we need to bring into the fold to make sure that person A gets better and gets back to work and stays there.
All right. So you mentioned physical strength, but
Yes.
it's not just about physical injuries, isn't it? You also deal with psychological injuries.
We
as
deal
well.
with a variety of injuries, whether they're physical, so if someone's fallen over and broken their leg or sprained their wrist or cut their finger off, right through to psychological injuries. And I'd have to say we're seeing, unfortunately, more and more of those these days. So people that have been bullied at work, for instance, police officers who might have post-traumatic stress disorder. So we deal with a whole gamut of different injuries and illnesses.
Okay. So if I'm an injured worker and I know the process is that the insurer will basically say you need to go to a rehabilitation provider.
Yes.
How do I actually get in touch with a rehab provider?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways. Sometimes an insurance company will refer you to their particular rehabilitation provider, and don't get me wrong, some of them are okay, but quite a number of them have the interests of the employer at heart, more so than the injured worker. Our focus is around looking after injured workers. So predominantly they can be referred by their doctor to us as a rehab provider, have referral from the union, or they can simply go onto our website at www.workershealth.com.au, where they can see all the services that we provide and also self-refer.
One of the questions that we get asked at the Injured Workers Helpline, which the number's right there for anybody who wants it, what actually does make, or what is a good rehab provider?
Okay, a good rehab provider is somebody who's got an injured worker's best interests at heart. So somebody that's going to make sure they've got appropriate treatment, that they're being looked after in a way that they can actually get back to work and sustain their employment so that they can feed their families.
Okay. Now, I'm fairly much aware in other roles that I do that 60% of the positiveness that comes out, I've just invented a word there, the positiveness that comes out of having any relationship with workers, 6% of that is the success rate, 40% is the hard slog of the worker. Is that true with rehab providers as well, that that relationship you have with them is 60% of any success rate?
Within our organisation, I would say that our case managers are 100% committed to getting people back to work. That's the first thing, that's really important. Of course, there needs to be a contribution on the part of the injured worker, but by and large, our job as a rehab provider is to have that person's back and make sure that they have every opportunity available to them to get back to work.
Okay, and that's the mark of a good rehab provider, wasn't it? To make every opportunity.
In my view, it definitely is. If you cannot successfully return somebody to work if they haven't had early intervention, so treatment, the appropriate treatment at the appropriate time, and be looked after by appropriately qualified health practitioners to get them back to work. Without that, you have nothing.
And they need to be qualified as well, don't they? It can't be just a Joe off the street doing the job of a rehab worker. You've got social workers.
Absolutely.
OTs.
I guess there's two things that workers need to understand, and one is that there's a very big difference between rehabilitation providers and rehabilitation coordinators. So if we could just explain the difference, might be helpful to people. So generally, rehabilitation coordinators are people that you would have employed on your job site. So somebody that works for the organisation that oversees people that get injured. Okay. Currently, those people receive 2 days training in how to do that job.
So we're talking about the return to work coordinators.
That's right,
yep.
Which is sometimes confused with return to work providers.
Yep.
So return to work providers are what Workers Health do. So we have a team of physiotherapists, rehabilitation case managers, psychologists, physiotherapists, so people that have been to university for a length of time, have a recognised qualification, and in terms of our centre actually have a lot of experience in getting injured workers back to work. So there's a very big divide when workers are left to rely on a workplace return to work coordinator to get them back to work, as opposed to someone who's suitably qualified that works for a rehabilitation provider such as itself. So there's a big divide. So on one hand, you've got people that have had 2 days training in what might look like how to write a return to work plan, where we've got suitably qualified people. And that's very important in getting people back. Someone who's done 2 days training does not have the skills or the knowledge to help a person get back to work and remain there in durable employment.
Okay. The other thing rehab workers do, if I can call them rehab providers, rehab workers, is that they sort of an in-between the insurers, the employers, the doctors. They're the runaround, and that can be problematic. But I suppose one thing that you were saying before is that the 100% commitment to returning the person to work, rather than that divided loyalty of making the insurer happy, making the employer happy, is really what makes a good rehab provider.
It is, and it's a dilemma that we see faces injured workers every day, where they come to us after having 2 or 3 different providers, where those providers have been much more interested in running the race to agree with the doctor or the insurer, rather than focusing on the injured worker and trying to get them back to work. So it is a big issue, that 100% commitment to that particular person to get them back on the job, which is what we give.
Okay. Now I've had another question related to this from a particular individual. There is a difference between the Workers Health Centre and most others, and that difference is you guys are not for profit.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we're a not-for-profit organisation, and what that means is that any money that we make out of the services that we provide, totally 100% get poured back into providing better service for clients. So that's the difference between us and others, I suppose. Most other providers are there purely for commercial purposes, to make money, to pay their shareholders. We don't have that. We have a board of volunteers that run our organisation, and as I said, any profit that's generated from our services goes directly back to injured workers in the form of services and additional staff.
Just as a disclosure within that, there are some providers out there who are small businesses who don't sign on to contracts with the insurers, and I presume you guys have no contracts with the insurers like some of the larger firms.
No. I guess one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we are an independent body, so we are not aligned in any way with insurers, for instance, who will provide work for us. We have plenty of work that we need to do. We don't rely on insurers. We don't have any contracts with them. We don't sit on any of their panels. So we pride ourselves on being very independent. It's because we truly are.
Okay. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that answers that question. I think next week we're talking about suitable duties with one of your staff members as well.
Interesting. Suitable duties, yes.
Okay. So thank you for listening. Hope you got something out of this. If you do have any questions about rehab providers, you can always contact us at the number there, 9749 7566. Yes, I still need to look at that number. And there's Burges Health Centre here as well. You can find a link to them on our website. Again, a disclosure, Industrial Health and Research Foundation, we are a part of them. The Injured Worker Support Network is a part of them. You do have a choice of your own rehab provider.